comes to franchises, every one of them has its ups and downs. There's always good iterations, and then there's the inevitable bad iterations. Whether it's movies, TV, comics, or video games, there are good versions and bad versions of a particular franchise. Thankfully today, we're talking about one of the good. Announced at E3 in 2016, Marvel's Spider-Man, or Spider-Man PS4 to avoid confusion with a certain television show on Disney XD, has been an eagerly awaited title from Ratchet & Clank developer Insomniac Games. When rumors of the game started to swirl, it was thought that infamous developer Sucker Punch would be the ones developing, as they had made 3 great superhero games in the past, and an open-world web-slinging game would have been right up their alley. Instead, Insomniac was the studio selected for this task after the success of their Xbox One exclusive Sunset Overdrive. Taking inspiration from nearly every facet of Spider-Man, this new game features an older Peter Parker from what we've been used to recently. At this time in the story, Peter has been Spider-Man for 8 years, so he's gotten pretty good at the whole superhero thing. The game opens with a takedown of Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, a moment that Peter and the NYPD have been waiting for since Parker became Spider-Man. To Peter, this is the end of an era, and maybe one where he can take a break from being Spider-Man. But darkness lurks in the shadows of New York, and a new threat rises to fill the void left by Fisk and his criminal empire. A new gang of superpowered thugs has taken to the streets. Known as the Demons, they have a vendetta against Mayor Norman Osborn, and they'll blast through anyone to get to him. Along the way, Spider-Man must also deal with the new Sinister Six, consisting of Electro, Vulture, Rhino, Scorpion, Mr. Negative, and to avoid spoilers, the Master Planner. The threats don't end there, as Peter must also find ways to pay rent, keep his job with a certain scientist, and get back with his ex, Mary Jane Watson. Everything that makes a Spider-Man story work is found in this game. Peter has to juggle his personal life with the ever-growing responsibility of keeping the city safe from criminals and villains. Just when it looks like he's got things under control, 2 more things go wrong. There's an entire story mission dedicated to trying to locate Peter's personal items after he's evicted from his apartment and they're thrown in the trash. That may sound boring on paper, but the writing team in Insomniac knows how to craft an interesting story mission. Part of what makes the game and story work is the superb voice acting from Yuri Lowenthal as Peter/Spidey. The initial reaction from anyone is going to be to try and compare him to previous Spideys, whatever. Specifically, current Spider-Man star Tom Holland. It's probably not that great of an idea since Lowenthal's Spider-Man is so much different from what we've seen in the past, or currently. Tom Holland plays the still-in-high-school kid version of Spidey perfectly, with his bright outlook and quippy nature well established in films such as Captain America Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming. What Yuri does is play a version of Peter you can imagine Tom Holland growing up to be. He's very quippy, as Spider-Man should be, and has a fairly cheery demeanor when using his public persona. When it comes to Peter, he's much more beaten down from the stress of his job, but still finds ways to be optimistic. He's also awkward in some ways, the little bit of teenage Pete still hanging around from time to time.
No, yes, no, I don't not want to, but meaning I do want to, but...
The rest of the cast does a wonderful job as well. Laura Bailey plays MJ and probably makes it the best iteration of her to date. Certainly better than Miss Damsel from the Raimi films. Man, I hate those movies. Aunt May is the perfect blend of grandmother figure some iterations use her as, and a more active parent role as she volunteers for and practically runs a local shelter named Feast. Everyone's favorite Spider-Man fan, J. Jonah Jameson, of course makes an appearance via a short podcast Peter listens to while swinging around the city. While he's no J.K. Simmons, the one good thing from the original Spider trilogy and the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show, the guy playing JJ does a superb job shifting from full of himself pig-headedness to actual competent journalist at times.
Oh boy, here we go.
Friends, I've just received an update on Adrian Toombs, aka the Vulture. Apparently, this winged criminal has fallen ill with cancer, and he's been moved to the Raft's infirmary for treatment, which will undoubtedly cost a fortune in public funds. Now let me ask you, why do we even have an infirmary at the Raft? It's a supermax prison, full of maniacs. If they get sick, let nature take its course. Now I realize that's harsh, but so is my tax bill.
Norman Osborn comes across as schmoozy businessman opportunist rather than full-on villain, and it works well, especially when you see his darker side come out. There is no Green Goblin in the game, but there's potential there for the sequel. The various villains all sound appropriately evil or scary depending on their subtle character arcs, and of note, the former spectacular Spider-Man Josh Keaton plays Electro in a small role.
It's an exclusive club.
The gameplay might seem a tad familiar if anyone out there has played a good amount of the Batman Arkham series. While it's certainly inspired by that system, it feels completely different, and the controls are even different to boot. So don't immediately call this a blatant ripoff. It's an evolution. Part of the Arkham combat I could never get a hang of was grabbing objects and throwing them at my foes. It was an option during combat, but Batman was so slow I had to focus on evading and counterattacking rather than showing off. In Spider-Man, showing off is part of the fun of combat. Sometimes it's just more fun to dodge than it is to actually counter someone, as Spidey slips and jumps around with ease. There's always plenty of objects nearby to grab as well, and swinging a trash can around in a circle, taking out a group of guys, and throwing it at the last one is really satisfying. Spider-Man also comes with a bunch of gadgets, and this is one of my few complaints with the game. Most of the gadgets Spidey has make sense. There's web grenades, electric webs, and others that make you feel like Spider-Man, but then there's one or two that just feel like cheating. There's an anti-grav device that suspends enemies in the air, allowing you to easily beat them up. Then there's a device that basically allows you to force push people around like you're a Jedi Master or something. These two gadgets don't feel like Spider-Man at all, but thankfully they're entirely optional, so you don't have to use them. When not playing a story mission and just swinging around the city, there will be random crimes that pop up and require your assistance. Demons will take buses hostage, gangs will be trying to break into buildings, and car chases will require your intervention. They're fun side activities that, while repetitive, keep you entertained while in between story missions. Completing these side activities helps you level up and unlocks tokens, which are required for purchasing the various different suits in the game. There's everything from Spider-Man Noir to the Stark suit from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you know I'm using that when not doing a story mission. While great, this brings me to my second complaint. Each new suit that you unlock grants a new suit power, which ranges from things like faster running to access to the Iron Spider's extra arms. While neat little cheat codes essentially, they're nothing but, and feel pretty useless. I only ever stuck to the suit power unlocked with the advanced suit, or the box art suit with the white spider, and even then I forgot I had the ability to use it more than half the time. Spider-Man feels good enough shooting webs at people and sliding underneath people's legs. I don't need an instant kill mode.
Activating instant kill.
No, I don't want to kill anybody.
Deactivating instant kill.
Spider-Man, of course, makes up the majority of gameplay, but there are quick stealth sections where you play as Peter himself, MJ, and or Miles Morales. Some have complained about these, but I never found them too irritating or distracting as they came and went. I actually appreciated them being there, as they acted as a small breather in between sometimes tense story beats. There's also a bunch of collectibles and other side missions to partake in. You can help Harry Osborn keep his mom's research stations running, find Peter's backpacks from high school, and take photos of famous landmarks in New York, real and fictitious. As for New York itself, it's beautifully realized, and it seems like a busy, bustling city. Granted, I've never actually been to New York City, so I don't actually know how accurate it is, but from a gameplay perspective, it's a fun sandbox to roam around in. When roaming around in the sandbox, it might be fun to take a few pictures. Like many games this generation, there's a built-in photo mode, not unlike those found in infamous Second Son and Horizon Zero Dawn. It's easy to select different filters and stuff in the options and make pretty-looking screenshots. Pretty much everything about this game is fantastic. The camera has a couple issues here and there, and QuickTime events take a little getting used to, but overall, the game is superb. Not counting something like LEGO Marvel Superheroes, the only other Spider-Man game I've ever played is The Amazing Spider-Man on PlayStation Vita. While the graphics are certainly downgraded, the game mechanics were fine and I had fun playing it. Spider-Man PS4 actually reminds me a lot of that game, as there are several similarities between the two. However, Spider-Man PS4 makes an Amazing Spider-Man look like a work-in-progress build in comparison. It's gorgeous, it's fun to play, the story is awesome, the characters are great, and web-slinging has never felt better. It may come as no surprise, but the best deal for Spider-Man PS4 is easily the full $60 package. There's also DLC coming out in October, November, and December, so even treat yourself and get the $25 pass since the game is such an easy platinum trophy. I highly doubt you'll regret it. If I had described the game in one word, spectacular.